Hi there, this is Mike from Time to Pet, and thanks for joining me for our Getting Started video. During this video, I will be going over some of the most important features in Time to Pet. We'll get started with some of the basics, things like adding a client, adding a service, and adding a staff member, and after, we'll dig a little deeper into some of the more complex parts of our system. But to get started, let's first talk about adding a client. To add a new client to your Time to Pet account, click the Add New Client button found in the Clients dropdown. Just as a heads up for anyone that is transitioning to Time to Pet from an existing software system, or if you have all of your customer data in a spreadsheet, we can help you import that information into our system. Just shoot us an email at support@timetopet.com and we can help walk you through the process. When adding a client, Time to Pet is looking for just some basic information about that customer. That will include information like their name, their email address, and their phone number. You'll also notice that on the bottom of the screen, there is a Client Welcome Email checkbox. When selected, Time to Pet will send your customer a Client Welcome email, which they can use to activate their client account and update all of their information, including their client details and their pet details. If you choose not to send the Client Welcome email, you can always do so at a later point. After all of the information has been entered, you can click the blue Create Client button to create your new client account. We'll review the entire client profile later in our demo. Let's next review how to add a new service to your Time to Pet account. You can add a new service by clicking the plus New Service button found in the Services and Holidays section. When adding a new service, Time to Pet will ask you some basic information about that service type. For example, the service name is what you call this service. If this was your 30-minute dog walking service, you can name it 30-minute dog walk. The default duration is how long this particular service type lasts on your calendar. Again, if this was a 30-minute dog walking service, you would set this to 30 minutes. The mobile app timer option controls how long this event lasts on your mobile app when starting and stopping the visit. In most cases, the mobile app timer will mimic the default duration of the event. You can choose whether or not the service is going to be selectable or non-selectable by your customers. You might have a service type like overnight pet sitting that you want to be able to schedule for your customers, but you don't want them to be able to request that service. Time to Pet does support GPS tracking through our mobile app, and when GPS tracking is enabled, you have the option to track the full GPS route on a service-by-service basis. For example, if this service was dog walking and you wanted to see the entire route that your staff member took during the event, you can enable GPS route tracking here. For some services, like pet sitting or cat sitting, you may not be concerned with the GPS route and you can disable it for those service types. When GPS route tracking is disabled, Time to Pet will just capture the GPS coordinates when a staff member checks in and checks out of an event, and when GPS route tracking is enabled, we will track the GPS coordinates for the duration of that service. Event Started Notification is a tool to automatically send a notification to your client when their event has started. Time to Pet also supports automated late reminder notifications. These are notifications sent to the assigned staff member and your management team when an event is possibly late. These are never sent to the pet parent. Lastly, you can set a description, a private note, and a color for this service. At the bottom of the screen, you'll see rate information for your service. First up is the default cost of your service. Please keep in mind that in Time to Pet, you can set custom rates on a client-by-client basis, but this is the default cost that most of your customers will pay for this service type. If you're required to collect sales tax for your services, you can set that here. If you pay your staff members a per visit amount, you can set the default staff rate. This can either be a percentage or a flat dollar amount. You can also set custom rates on a staff by staff basis. So for example, if you pay one of your senior staff members a little bit more, you can set that directly on their staff profile. If you pay your team members hourly, Time to Pet does also support hourly time tracking that we will review a little bit later in our demo. The extra pet rate section allows you to charge extra for additional pets. And if you pay your staff members extra for additional pets, you can set that here too. If we scroll back to the top of the screen, you'll see that there are a few additional tabs to review. First is the Scheduling tab. If you only offer this particular service during certain times of the day or on certain days of the week, you can customize that right from here. For example, if you only offer dog walking on weekdays in the afternoon or evening, you can configure this service type. Next is the Auto Fees tab. Auto fees allow you to set additional fees if services are booked outside of your normal business hours or if services are booked on the weekend. Frequency discounts is a complex tool in TimeToPet, so we highly recommend you read our help documentation on this particular tool, but I will cover it here briefly. Frequency discounts allow you to set automated rules that will give your customers a discount if they book X number of visits per day, per week, or per month. For example, if you normally charge $25 for a 30-minute dog walk, but if your customer books 5 or more dog walks per week and you want to give them a price break of $23 per service, you can set that up right here. Frequency discounts are a great way to incentivize your customers to book more of your services. Again, we have a lot of information on frequency discounts that you can find in our knowledge base. You can navigate there by going to help.timetopet.com, or you can always click the help button found in the bottom right-hand side of the screen for some page-specific help documentation. Next up, let's talk about how you can add a staff member to your TimeToPet account. You can add a new staff by clicking the drop-down next to staff and then the Add New Staff button. Adding a staff member is very similar to adding a client in TimeToPet. Again, the staff member will need a name and an email address, and you can also add a phone number. There are 4 unique roles that you can set for this particular staff member. First up is the administrator role. The administrator role allows your staff member to do everything in TimeToPet. This is going to be what your account is set to if you created the TimeToPet account for your business. Next up is the office manager role. The office manager is a very customizable role in TimeToPet. For example, you may have office managers that manage scheduling but not invoicing. You can configure your office manager role to meet those parameters. Next up is a regular staff member. A regular staff member tends to be someone who spends most of their time in the field completing events. And lastly is a trainee. Trainees tend to be someone who's brand new to your company. You want to show them how TimeToPet works, but don't want to give them too much control. After adding all of this information, just click the blue Add Staff button to create the staff member. When creating a staff, TimeToPet will automatically send the staff their welcome email, which they can use to activate their staff account and set their password. Now that we've gone through some of the basics of TimeToPet, let's jump to the scheduler. The scheduler is at the core of TimeToPet, and this is where you'll probably find yourself spending the majority of your time. There are 3 main actions that you can take in the scheduler section. First is viewing all of your scheduled events. This is also where you can rearrange and edit all of your events. And lastly, the scheduler is a great place to schedule new events for your customers. First, let's talk about how you can view all of your events here in the scheduler. You'll probably notice that on our calendar, some of our events are blue, while some of our events are purple. That's because this particular calendar has been color-coded based on who the assigned staff member is. If we take a closer look at one of our purple events, you'll see that the assigned staff member is Kyle Thielk, and if we look at a blue event, you'll see that the assigned staff member is James Turner. Color-coding your events based on who the assigned staff member is one of 3 ways to color code events in TimeToPet. You'll see there is a drop-down on the very bottom left that is currently set to color by staff. If you change this to color by status, you'll see that all of our events are updated. All of the events that have been marked as complete are in green, and the events that are still scheduled are in blue. If we had any events that were currently in progress, those would show in a teal color. We also support color by service. This will show your events based on the color assigned to the service type. Let's go ahead and set this back to color by staff. We also support several different views of the calendar. You'll see this particular calendar is currently set to a week, but if you wanted to change this, just click any of the drop-downs here in the top left of the screen. We support multiple different views ranging from a month all the way to a single day. We also support several list views, in two different timeline views. The timeline view allows you to see all of the scheduled events scheduled for your specific staff members. You'll see that events for James Turner are in his column, and events for Kyle Thielk are in his column. We support so many different views because we understand that every pet care business is different. Your business may prefer the timeline view, but another company may prefer a calendar month view. Let's go ahead and set this back to the week view. And let's take a look at some of the different filter options on the calendar. You'll see that there is a staff dropdown where you can select just one staff member from your list. Let's say we just wanted to see events assigned to our staff member, James Turner. You'll notice that all of these events change color because it doesn't make sense to show the color by staff if we just have one staff member selected. If we clear out James Turner, you'll see that all of our events returned, as does our color by staff settings. If you wanted to view your calendar by one client, just choose the client dropdown and then search for your customer. We'll search for our customer, John Dow. This is really helpful if John has called you on the phone and you want to make it really easy to just see his events. Next up, let's talk about how you can edit or rearrange your events in the calendar. Time to Pet does support drag and drop, so if you needed to change the time of one of your events, you can easily drag and drop the event to change the time. Time to Pet will warn you just to make sure that you did this on purpose. If you have your calendar set to one of our timeline views, Time to Pet supports the ability to drag and drop events from one staff member to another to reassign that event. This tool can be really handy, especially for large businesses that maybe have events change quite often. If you want to see more details about any particular event, just click on that event and Time to Pet will give you more details. To make changes, click the blue Edit Event button. The Edit Event screen allows you to make changes to this specific event that includes the date and the time of this service. You can also change the service type, the staff member, which pets are included, as well as the status. You'll also notice that there is a client time display field. In Time to Pet, we do use a real calendar to schedule events at real times, but for many of our customers, they do not want to share the exact times of their events with their customers. That's exactly what client time display is for. Instead of your customer seeing that this event is scheduled at 3 p.m., they'll see that this event is scheduled in the evening between 3 and 6 p.m. That gives you and your team more flexibility as you are completing events. Lastly, here is the Event Notes field. Event notes are going to be visible to you and to your team members, but not to your customer. This is a great place to add information specific to this event that you don't want to share with the customer. For example, Fido is a DoorDasher, or don't forget to feed Fido. Let's go ahead and close our service order, and I'll talk a little bit more about service orders later in our demo. Let's also jump back to the week view. Next up is our Bulk Update tool. Bulk Update allows you to select multiple events at once and make changes to all of those events. For example, if you need to quickly reassign 3 events from James Turner to Kyle Thielk, you can do so using this tool. Lastly, let's talk about how to schedule events for your customers via the calendar. Of course, in Time to Pet, your customers can request their own services via the client app or the client portal, but if your customer is calling you on the phone and wants you to schedule events for them, you can do so right from here. To schedule events for your customer, click the blue Schedule Client button in the top right. Time to Pet will ask you which customer these events are for. Let's select our customer, John Dow. At this point, it's important to talk about how invoicing works in our system. In Time to Pet, invoicing is intrinsically linked to scheduled events. That means that when you schedule events for your customers, or when you approve one of their service order requests, Time to Pet will automatically generate the invoice for you. In some cases, you may want to add these events to an existing invoice instead of creating a new one. Let's say that in this case, John Doe is going on a new trip, so we will create a new invoice for him. The next screen is showing us a service order in Time to Pet. A service order is a grouping of events that are associated with a single invoice. You'll see that this invoice is number 2338. There are 3 really simple ways to schedule events in our system. First, you can click anywhere on your calendar And Time to Pet will automatically set the day and the time for you. You can then set the service type, the staff, the pets, and all of the additional information. You can also schedule events by clicking the Add Event button in the top right of the service order. When clicking Add Event, Time to Pet will give you the same screen except the date and the time are not preset based on where you clicked. Lastly, and my favorite way to schedule events in Time to Pet is by using the Schedule a Trip tool. Scheduling a trip is a great way to schedule multiple events for your customer that have a defined start and end date. Time to Pet does also support a templates tool for all of those regular recurring customers, and we'll review how that works in a few minutes. For this trip, let's say that John Doe is leaving town on November 24th and coming back on November 26th. He's looking for our pet sitting service, and Susan Smith will be doing these events. After you have your pets selected, let's go ahead and set the dates and the time. The first event of the day will be happening at 8 a.m., the second at 1 p.m., and the third at 6 p.m. If you needed more than 3 events per day, you can click the Add Time button, or if you need to get rid of one, just click Remove. Now, each checkbox correlates to an event that will be scheduled. Let's say that this particular customer is leaving in the late afternoon on the first day. They don't need the first or second visit. They're also coming back in the late morning on the last day, so let's get rid of the third and the second visit on that day. And finally, let's go ahead and schedule our trip. You'll see that all of these events have been scheduled, and if we go and check out our invoice, you'll see the invoice has been generated as well. As I mentioned, Time to Pet does have a great tool for your regular recurring customers called templates. Templates allow you to set a recurring set of services that will automatically be invoiced based on the billing frequency that you choose. For example, if you bill all of your regulars weekly, you can create a weekly template for them. This will schedule the next round of services and create their weekly invoice automatically every single week. Templates can also be set up to schedule bi-weekly, semi-monthly, or monthly. We highly recommend reading our help documentation related to templates because, in my opinion, templates are the most important tool for any pet sitting or dog walking business that has regular recurring customers. You can click the link right here for more information on templates, or you can search for templates in our knowledge base. Let's now go ahead and take a look at the client portal so we can see exactly what your customers would see when they log in. Just a heads up, all of the functionality that we will review here is also available in the Client app, which can be downloaded by your customers by searching for Time to Pet in the Apple App Store or the Google Play Store. The first section here is the conversation feed. The conversation feed is where your customers can see all messages sent to and from your business. This includes the post-visit reports sent when completing a service. Post-visit reports can include notes from the event, pictures, a video, and the answers to your visit report card questions. All of these messages can also be delivered as email, or if your customer has downloaded the Time to Pet Client app, can be sent as push notifications right to their smartphone. Your customers can respond directly to those messages, and their response will be automatically added back to their conversation feed. We also support a private channel, so if you have any communication you want to keep directly between you and your customer and don't want your staff members to see, this is the perfect place for that. Next up is the My Info section. The My Info section is where your customers can view and update all of the information that you collect about them. This will include things like their name, their address, their emergency contact, and any additional information that you create. It's important to note here that all of this information is customizable. So if you have very specific pieces of information that are important to you in your business, you can add those directly to your Time to Pet account. You can also mark some of these fields as required, which means your customers need to complete this information before they can request services. Next up, let's take a look at pet information. Similar to the client information, all of the pet details are entirely customizable. So if you have really specific pieces of information that your business needs to collect about pets, you can customize that in your Time to Pet account. Your customers can also edit their pet information by clicking the Edit Details button. or if they need to add a new pet, they can do so right here at the top. We also support vaccination tracking and management for pets. Up next is the Schedule tab. The Schedule tab is where your customers can view all of their scheduled events as well as request new services. To request new services, your customers can click the blue Request New Services button. When requesting services, your customers can either submit a single request, which is just for one day, or they can submit a request for multiple days at once. To submit a request, your client would click Continue, select the pets they need services for, select the service that they're looking for, select the schedule blocks they need these events in, and add any notes. When a customer submits a service order request, Time2Pet will notify your admin team, and I'll show you how you can process that request in just a couple of minutes. Lastly is the Invoices section. Invoices is where your customers can view all of their invoices as well as make payments. To make a payment, a client can click the Make a Payment button, choose the invoice they'd like to pay, add an optional tip, and then process their payment. If you have any questions on implementing payments into your account, please don't hesitate to reach out to our support team at support@time2pet.com. Let's go ahead and jump back to the admin side of Time2Pet and take a look at a pending request. Our customer, John Doe, has submitted a service order request for visits at the end of December, and we're ready to process them. To do so, just click the blue Process Request button. If you need to make any changes to these events, you can do so by clicking the Edit Request button. After reviewing and making sure that everything looks good, you can save. You can then process these one at a time by clicking Process and Approve, or if you know these are all correct, you can approve them all at once in the Edit Request dropdown. By default, Time2Pet will approve all of these events into a new invoice. If you want to approve them into an existing invoice, you can choose so from the drop-down menu. If you need to split this request into several invoices, just look for the drop-down next to Edit Request and then Split. By default, Time2Pet will send your customer a confirmation email when these events have been reviewed. If you don't want that to be sent, just uncheck the confirmation checkbox. Let's go ahead and take a look at a client's profile. You may notice at the top of Time2Pet there's a search bar where you can search for all of your customers. Let's go ahead and search for John Doe. This is a client's profile in Time2Pet. There's a couple important items to point out. Immediately below the client's name is their balance. The balance is the value of all of their outstanding invoices that have not yet been paid. Time2Pet will show you a couple additional details about this client, like if they have a card on file and if they've signed all of their agreements. We also support a Tasks and a Flags tool. You can see the tasks at the top of the page, and flags are immediately below the balance. Tasks are a great way to add reminders for you and your team that are specifically related to this client, and flags are a great way to identify important information about this client, like they pay with credit cards and they're a VIP. The very first tab in a client profile is their conversation feed. Just like in the client portal, you can see all messages sent to and from this customer. We also support the ability to filter these messages, and you can create new messages right from here. Next up is the Details tab. The Details is where you can view and edit all of the information about this client, just like they can edit it in their client portal. It's important to keep in mind that you can have private fields that are not visible by your customers, but are visible by you and your staff members. Next up is the Services and Invoices tab. Services and Invoices is a complete history of all of the invoices and all of the events associated with this particular customer. Time2Pet does not have a limit on the information that we will store for you, so if this is a customer of yours for 10 years, you'll see 10 years worth of data here. The Pets tab is where you can see all of the information about this client's pets. You also have the ability to edit this information or add new pets for this customer. The Rates tab is where you can set custom rates for this particular client. You'll see that this client has a custom rate for dog walking 30 minutes. The default cost is $25, but they only pay us $20. Custom rates can either be a flat dollar amount or you can set them as a percentage. Next up is the Keys tab. If you have keys in your possession for this customer, you can create and manage keys for them right from here. Anytime a key changes hands, you can edit the key in the client's profile. So let's say this key was at the office, but now it's with our staff member, James Turner. You'll see that the possession has been updated, and TimeToPet also tracks the complete history of the keys in your company's possession. Lastly, in the client's profile is the Docs section. The Docs section is where you can upload documents directly to a client's profile. This is for static documents, but we do also support an agreements tool that allows your clients to e-sign agreements for your business. We'll review more on agreements a little bit later in our demo. Let's go ahead and look at a staff member's profile, James Turner. This is what a staff profile looks like in TimeToPet. You'll notice that staff members also have support for tasks as well as flags. The first tab here is the conversation feed. The conversation feed is where you can view and send messages directly to this staff member. Next up is the schedule tab. The schedule tab is where you can see all scheduled events for this staff member and also where you can change their staff color that appears on the main calendar. The keys tab is where you can see all of the keys that are currently in possession of this staff member. In the services tab is where you can see a complete list of all of the services that have been assigned to this staff. Again, TimeToPet has no limitation on the amount of data that we will store for you. So if this is a staff member of yours for 10 years, you'll see 10 years worth of data here. TimeToPet does support time and mileage tracking for your team. We'll talk a little bit more about time shifts and mileage later in our demo. The Rates tab is where you can view and set custom rates for your staff member. Custom rates can be set for the main rate, the extra pet rate, the after hours rate, and the weekend rate for each one of your services. The reason that TimeToPet tracks all of this rate information is because we have a staff pay stubs or a user invoices tool. Pay stubs allow you to generate pay reports that show you exactly how much you owe your staff members over any given date range. Pay stub reports can be generated directly on a staff member's profile, or you can generate pay stubs for all of your staff members at once in the Pay Center. Just a heads up that TimeToPet is not a payroll processor, so we can't actually process payments to your team or collect employment tax. However, we can most certainly generate the reports that show you how much you have to pay your team, and then you can enter that information into your payroll processor of choice. Next up, let's take a look at the invoicing section in TimeToPet. First up is the invoice list. The invoice list is a complete breakdown of all of the invoices in your account. If you need to make changes to any of these invoices, just click the Edit button. You can edit many details about your invoice, including the invoice number, the invoice date, and the invoice due date. You can also set custom rules for when the invoice date and due date are set in Invoice Settings. TimeToPet also allows you to customize all of the line items on an invoice. Just click the pencil icon to make any changes. If this particular customer is paying you via cash or check, you can add a manual payment to the invoice by clicking the Add Payment button in the very bottom left. Of course, if this customer is paying you via credit card through TimeToPet, we'll automatically mark the invoice as paid as soon as the payment is processed. You can also email this invoice to your customer by clicking the Email button. You can download this invoice as a PDF, or you can add a manual tip to the invoice right from here. For many pet care businesses, they want to automate as many aspects of their business as they can. We support automatic payments just for that. When enabled, automatic payments will automatically email your clients a reminder email 24 hours prior to their invoice due date. The reminder email includes information about their upcoming payment and a button for the client to add a tip. On the invoice due date, TimeToPet will automatically process payment for that invoice. We have a bunch of additional functionality related to automatic payments, and you can learn more about that in our knowledge base, or we'll talk about it a little bit later in our demo. Lastly, here is bulk invoicing. Bulk invoicing allows you to perform other invoicing actions in bulk, such as emailing invoices, marking invoices as manually paid, applying credits, and more. The Messages section is where you can see all messages sent to and from your business. Messages also allow you to create and send mass emails to clients, as well as staff members, and you can view and download all of the images or videos that your staff members are sending in the gallery. This is a great way to find awesome social media content for your business. Let's now go ahead and jump to the reporting section. We support robust reporting to help you better understand and manage your business. This includes dozens of reports on your revenue, your payments, tools to download all of your sales data, reports on visits, tools to export data on your staff members and your clients, and time and mileage reports. When you have enabled time and mileage tracking for your staff members, they have the ability to check in and check out of shifts directly from their smartphone via the Time2Pet staff app. Your staff members also have the ability to record their mileage, so you can very easily and quickly generate reports for them. Your staff members can also see their own time and mileage data directly from their Time2Pet staff app. Lastly, let's go through of the settings options. First, all of the settings options in Time2Pet are searchable. So for example, if you wanted to find settings options related to GPS, just search for GPS and Time2Pet will show you all of the related options. We also have a lot of help documentation related to all of these settings. On the top of every page, you'll see a blue information bubble that will give you more information about the settings on the page, as well as a link to the help article. You can also hover over any of the information icons next to a setting for more information. The first settings page is Company Settings General. This page allows you to customize all of the information about your business, like your company name, your company website, your company's social media pages, and your address. Next up is Client Fields. Client Fields is where you can customize all of the information that your customers answer about themselves. All of these fields can be marked as client editable, client visible. They can also be marked as required or staff visible. You can also create new fields by clicking the plus new field button. Next up is pet fields. This is where you can customize all of the information that you collect about the pets that are in your care. A lot of this information is similar to client details, except of course, it's very specific to pets. Next up is the flag section. Flags are where you can create both flags for clients and for staff members. These flags can be added to a client's profile or a staff profile and are visible throughout Time2Pet whenever you're looking at your client or your staff member. Next up is the messaging section. The first tool here is business hours. When business hours are enabled, you can automatically notify clients if they send you a message outside of your normal business hours. You can also automatically schedule your messages to be sent when your business reopens. This is a great little tool to help you regain some work-life balance. You can also customize a lot of the messaging in your Time2Pet account. Saved replies allow you to save a lot of the replies that you send all the time to your customers. We have some general saved replies here, but you can also create your own. Next up is scheduler settings. This is where you can configure a lot of the information related to your scheduler section in Time2Pet. This includes information like the calendar default view, the calendar interval, calendar start and stop times, and many more. Lastly, in the company settings is your theme section. This is where you can configure how your Time2Pet account looks and feels for you, for your staff members, and your customers. Let's now jump to the invoicing and payments settings section. First up here is invoice settings. This is where you can configure a lot of the information about your invoices. For example, you can add an invoice note that is attached to every invoice you generate, or you can customize the rules around your invoice due date. Next up is the credit cards section. Credit cards is where you can connect your Time2Pet account to our integrated payment tool, Time2Pet Payments powered by Stripe. If you want to accept credit cards, debit cards, or ACH payments, you can do so right from here. Lastly is the settings section for automatic payments. You can configure what days of the week you charge cards, what time of the day you charge cards, as well as some other settings options. Next up is the mobile app settings section in Time2Pet. First up is links to download the Time2Pet mobile app on the Google Play Store or the Apple App Store. We use the same app for both clients and for staff members. That makes it really simple and easy for your clients and staff to search and download the appropriate Time2Pet app. We determine if the user is a client or a staff member based on their login credentials and then send them to the right side of the app. We have some really great help information here on using the staff app or the client app that you can share with your team members and your customers. Next up is the configuration section. This allows you to configure your Time2Pet app. Most importantly here is the ability to enable and disable both time and GPS tracking. You can also optionally share that time and GPS data with your customers. Visit report cards allow you to create customizable report cards that your staff members can answer after completing an event. The answers to these visit report cards, in addition to any notes, pictures, and a video, will be sent to your customer via their post-visit report. Field visibility allows you to configure what information is shown to your staff members when they're looking at their events on their staff app. There's probably certain pieces of information that are really important to your staff, and you can make sure they have quick and easy access to that right from here. Client Settings General is where you can configure how your customers appear in TimeToPet. By default, we'll just show the human name, but you can configure this to show the human name and the pet name, or the pet name and then the human name. The Pets tab is where you can configure your pet birthday reminders. Vaccinations allow you to create and manage vaccinations that you can track directly on a client's pet profile. The Agreement section allows you to create one or several customized policy agreements that your clients need to review and e-sign the very first time they access the client portal. When enabled, TimeToPet will require that your customers review and e-sign these documents before they are allowed to request services. If you have to make changes to your agreements, you can do so right from here. When changing an existing agreement, TimeToPet will ask you if you want to update that agreement for just new customers, or if you want to require all of your customers to re-sign this document. If you ever need to print out a signed agreement, you can do so directly from a client's profile page. Next up is the Portal Settings section. This is where you can configure a lot of information about your client portal. The client portal tag is the custom link that you would give to your customers to access your business's client portal. Many of our customers will add this directly to their website underneath a client login button. If you have any questions on how to add this link to your website, just shoot us an email at support@timetopet.com. This is also where you can customize your pet parent onboarding tool. We've built Pet Parent Onboarding to make it incredibly easy for your new customers to activate their accounts and provide you the information that you need. Schedule blocks allow you to create the custom schedule blocks that your customers can request services in. For example, if your business has just 2-hour windows, you can create those here, or if your business has 4-hour windows, you can customize these schedule blocks. All of these schedule blocks are entirely customizable by each business that uses TimeToPet. Next up is staff settings. First up is some general settings for your staff. For example, you can choose whether or not your business uses employees or independent contractors, and you can also prevent your staff members from completing events too far in the future using the TimeToPet staff app. Permissions allow you to configure all of the different roles in your account. For example, if you have office managers and you want to make sure that they can manage scheduling but not invoicing, you can set that up right from here. Next up is time and mileage settings. You can enable or disable hourly and mileage tracking right from here. When enabled, you can also disable this on a staff-by-staff basis. For example, let's say some of your staff members are hourly employees and others are paid per event. You can make sure that time tracking is only enabled for those hourly employees. Next up is some integrations. TimeToPet does support optional integrations with a few different systems. First up is our integration with Dropbox. This allows you to automatically back up all of your data in your TimeToPet account nightly to your Dropbox account. We also support integrations with third-party calendars. This allows you and your staff members to view your events in your third-party calendar of choice. We support an optional integration with QuickBooks Online. If you'd like to connect all of your invoice and payment data from your TimeToPet account to your QuickBooks Online account, you can set that up right from here. We also support an integration with Zapier. Zapier allows you to connect your TimeToPet account with thousands of other web tools and services, allowing you to automate a ton of different aspects of your business. This is the end of our Getting Started video. If you have any questions for TimeToPet, please don't hesitate to reach out and ask them. The easiest place to send us messages is by clicking the Help button at the top of your dashboard and then selecting Contact Us. You can also send us direct messages by emailing us at support@timetopet.com. You also have access to the knowledge base by clicking Help and then clicking Knowledge Base, or by navigating directly to help.timetopet.com. The knowledge base is entirely searchable, and is a great place to look for information. Thanks again for your time. We appreciate it.